The first composition of the album Primus Ignis is titled Psychopomps and the Pentagram. It begins with a chant known as the chant of the breaking chord. This chant was first described in my book Divine Origins of Anti-Genre and Performing Rites. Its function is simple but essential: to open the mind of both listener and composer to an unmeasured infinite pulse, the raw source of untamed sound. From this opening, the piece emerges. Piano notes establish the first structure, grounded yet minimal. Tribal drums enter with force, introducing weight and physicality. Then the synthesizer appears, and with it, a subtle acceleration in tempo. This marks the invocation of fire. Primus Ignis marks the beginning of a new musical process, what I call anti-genre. This is not a symbolic gesture, it is a functional beginning, so it was fitting that the first song of the album would be the opening ceremony. In ceremonial magic, particularly within Hermetic and Western traditions, the opening of a ritual is an act of alignment. It is the point at which internal and external forces are brought into coherence. The pentagram, mentioned in the title of the song, represents this alignment through the 5 elements: fire, water, air, earth, and spirit. Each of these elements is invoked in sequence. The music mirrors this process. Every sonic layer corresponds to an elemental force, guiding the listener through a progression of transformation, grounding, and integration. The fire is extinguished by the sound of breath, a candle being blown out. Then thunder moves across the stereo field, accompanied by a church organ. This introduces both electricity and sanctity. This sound gives way to an electronic beat, and we are introduced to the sound of honeybees, which are the psychopomps mentioned in the title of the song. Psychopomps are not judges or rulers of the dead, but guides, mediate between worlds, escorting consciousness from one state of being to another. The choice of the bee is deliberate. Bees move constantly between worlds, from hive to flower and back again. They transform nectar into honey, just as experience is transformed into essence. And most importantly, they do not speak, they resonate. Their hum is fundamental. In many esoteric systems, vibration is the bridge between planes of existence. The bee, through its continuous tone, becomes a carrier of transition. This connects directly to the concept of Om in certain Eastern traditions, the primordial vibration underlying all existence. Not a word, but a sustained frequency from which form emerges. There is also a parallel to the practice of Brahmari, or bee breath, where a sustained hum is used to calm the mind and alter states of consciousness. For this reason, the bee's hum appears at each point of transition between elements. From here, the sound shifts into water. Waves crash against the shore, followed by droplets falling into stillness. Then, air. Wind emerges, accompanied by chimes. The bees return, but now something changes. The sound darkens. It loses definition. It becomes ambiguous, dense, and subterranean. We enter a space beneath structure, a network of unseen movement. This section of the song is meant to represent the passage through the clipotic realms, poetically referred to as the tunnels of Set, a symbolic underworld of fragmentation, instinct, and primal forces. These tunnels are hidden pathways beneath structural reality, expressions of the subconscious and instinctual layers of the psyche, where form begins to dissolve into raw force. They are not orderly, they are dark, labyrinthine, and alive, populated by distorted, crawling presences that move just beyond clarity. The purpose of this descent is to break the stability established by the structured elemental harmony heard before, to immerse the listener in tension, density, and unease, to create the sensation of moving through something alive, unseen, and close. The sounds of crawling, skittering, subtle movement are not just effects, they are psychological triggers that awaken deep ancestral responses. In many traditions, such a descent is a necessary part of transformation. Before integration and descent, one must pass through the unknown. This part of the piece is less about what is heard and more about what is felt, an encounter with the unfamiliar that invites the listener to move through it rather than away from it. After the descent into the underworld, a subtle shift occurs. The sound of a serpent emerges. In many traditions, the serpent symbolizes transformation and awakening, representing the moment when something within begins to change after confronting the unknown. From this point, the music begins to rise. The ascending arpeggios and tunnel imagery in the music video suggests a passage upward, a return, or even a rebirth. The listener is no longer in the same state as before. Having passed through darkness, they are carried upward through a kind of portal, completing a cycle of descent and ascent found in many esoteric traditions. The accompanying video expands on this experience visually, translating the sonic process into imagery. It is not an addition, it is a continuation of the same ritual.